This is a setup for a two-player game of Awesome Bots. Each player starts with a starting card, which is a part card that makes up your workshop, an upgrade card, and a receiving bay, where they'll get cards from other places later. Put the scrap pile and junkyard cards within reach of all players, and give one player the leader card. That person will be the start player. Shuffle all the deck of part cards together, which are all these, taking out the 3P cards, these that have the 3P in the corner, unless you're playing with exactly 3 players. So you'll shuffle that up and give it evenly to all players. Everyone draws 4 cards and starts the game. If this is your hand, these are just 4 part cards. I'll explain how to play them later. But the structure of a turn is this. You'll play one of your 4 cards, you'll pass one into your opponent's receiving bay, and you'll toss one into the junkyard. So I might do the following on my turn. I might play a card. I will pass a card into the receiving bay of my opponent, and I will put a card in the junkyard. Those cards go face down. The cards you play into your workshop are face up. To replace the 3 cards you just used, you will draw 3 more cards into your hand. Your opponent then does the same things. Your opponent will also play one, pass one, and toss one. You'll continue this process until you've run out of your decks. You'll take your final turns using all the cards in your hand, and then you'll go into the get phase. The get phase is when all the cards in the junkyard will get divvied up among all players. At the beginning of the get phase, you'll pass the leader card to the person on your left in a 2-player game that's your only opponent. The leader will shuffle all the cards in the junkyard, and depending on the number of players, he'll deal a number of them face up. You can check the rulebook for more details on this, but players will take cards in order, adding them to the receiving bay, along with the cards that were already passed to them. So all the cards in the junkyard will go to somebody. After that, you have another build phase, just like the start of the game. It has the same rules, the same structure, same everything. And you have another get phase, which is when you divvy up the junkyard again. The same everything there, too. You have one final build phase, which is very similar to the first build phases. The only difference is that there's no passing and tossing anymore. Instead, you'll only have 3 cards. You'll play one with the same rules as usual, and then you'll just directly scrap one from your hand, keeping one between turns. And then drawing 2 to replace those because you only use 2 cards. You'll go up until you both run out of decks, just like in the other build phases, and then you add up your scores. All the point cards on all the cards in your workshop, plus the ones in your upgrade pile, sum all their awesomeness points together, and whoever has the highest awesomeness total is the winner. Now we'll go into a little bit more detail about the playing part of a turn. Every part card will have some cost box on the bottom. Some of the cheaper cards, like this 2-point card, have no listed cost. If that's what you choose to play during your play phase, then all you do is put it into your workshop. That's all. Other cards will have a cost that looks like one of these. They'll either have an X or an arrow. X cards have a scrap cost. Arrow ones have an upgrade cost. You can see that they match these 2 piles. Both costs work pretty much the same way. You'll have to use cards from your workshop of the listed types in order to play them. So to play this 5 wild card, you'll have to take at least 2 points worth of orange cards that you've already played from your workshop and put them in the appropriate pile, either the scrap pile or the upgrade pile. Cards that go in the scrap pile are gone forever, no one will ever see them again, and they give no one any points. Cards in the upgrade pile will give that player points at the end of the game, but cannot be used for other future costs. Purple cards all say wild on them, including the starting card. That means you can pretend that they're any color or shape that you want. So to play this card, which costs 2 orange cards, I could just use my starting card, pretending it's orange. I put that in my workshop, and that would go in the scrap pile, never to be used again. To pay this, it costs at least 5 points of green cards. So if that were my workshop before, I could pretend that these cards are both green, that one is already green. I can take all of these, put them face down in my upgrade pile, and I have that instead. These 5 points here will still count at the end of the game. You can overpay by a cost as much as you want. So if that were my workshop before, and I wanted to play the 15 gray right here, I could upgrade the 15 points worth of green and put those in my upgrade pile. For upgrades, it's not a big deal if you overpay. It might be harder to play cards in the future, but you don't lose out on any points. You might want to be careful about scrapping cards. If you overpay too much there, you just lose those points. When a card has this kind of cost on the bottom, that means you can use any shape or combination of shapes to pay for it, whether they're orange, green, purple, or gray. I could, for instance, use 2 orange, 2 green, and a purple if I wanted to. However, cards that do have a purple cost must be paid in purple cards. If you cannot play a card in your play phase, you'll simply scrap one directly from your hand after you prove to your opponent that you honestly cannot play any of your cards. That doesn't happen too often, and especially not many turns in a row. That's all there is to play.